Amarone, not shriveled. Withered. Producing Amarone from the terroir through the long finish is a multifaceted process and adventure that embraces tradition, science, culture, economics, and market demand. Oops. Folklore suggests that Amarone was produced by chance and not design. An overextended fermentation process of Ricciotto enabled the yeast to consume most of the sugar content, and the outcome produced a drier wine with a high alcohol by volume (ABV) percentage. The outcome: the birth of Amarone, a brand new wine. Phi Lunder who knew? Amarone, Italian equals big bitter, wine is produced in Italy, and the technique of dehydration has been popular since the Romans used the method in the production of Rhaetian wine, sweet wine produced in the hills around Verona. In 1600 BC, ancient Anatolia, the technique became popular throughout the Greco-Roman classical world. The first written evidence explicitly mentioning the production of wines using partially dehydrated Valpolicella grapes in Verona dates to the 5th century, in a letter written by Cassiodorus, King Theodoric's minister in Ravenna, to the senators of the Venetian canonry, seeking to obtain the procurement of a sweet, reinforced and fortified wine. Natural sun drying, whether on or off the vine, is still considered the most traditional and commonly used method for withering grapes in many Mediterranean countries. Amarone, as a name, first appeared on bottle labels from the Veneto region in 1939. However, the wine was not produced on a regular basis until 1953, and the Denominazione di Origine Controllata (DOC) status was not assigned until December 1990. Rules. Because Amarone is a DOCG wine, the production process must follow a set protocol, some mandatory, others optional. A mandatory. 1. Grape selection. Autochthonous indigenous local cultivars include Corvina plus Corvinin, 45 to 95%. Corvina is the signature grape, Corvo equals crow, because ripe berries are very dark, almost bluish, recalling the plumage of the bird. Grapes produce oval berries with good acidity and medium tannins. Amarone produces a wine with a ruby red color, longevity, and hints of red fruit. Corvinin, an independent varietal. Berry size is an advantage in terms of yield and speeds harvesting, gives Amarone structure and spicy notes. Rondinella, 5 to 30%. Italian equals little swallow, or due to V-shaped leaf resembles the tail of a swallow, or because birds appreciate the small berries, or the color recalls the swallow's coat color. Berries are smaller than other grapes, round and dark-colored, with a thick skin, delivers aromatic notes with hints of red fruit and floral scents. Be optional, beginning in 2003. Molinara, Italian equals Miller. Due to the consistent quantity of pruin, a natural yeast on the berry's skin, bunches look like they have been sprinkled with flour. Light in color, the skin is pink and almost transparent. Nicknamed salty grape because of its low acidity and low tannins. Gives Amarone a fresh mineral note. Hand harvesting. Traditional methods. Manual harvest is a fundamental step in Amarone production. Selection of the bunches requires a skilled human hand. Grapes are harvested ripe during the first 2 weeks of October. Not all bunches are suitable for the drying process. Grapes must be perfectly healthy with no skin damage. Handled with delicacy and care to keep the skin intact. Care to not release must and start fermentation. Bunch must be scattered to ensure air circulation among the berries, and to avoid risks of mold and fungus. Bunches placed in wooden or plastic crates in a single layer for the drying process to prevent the grapes from being crushed under the weight of other grapes. The grape crates are stacked and stored in rooms known as front-eye large lofts with high ceilings and big windows, permitting maximum ventilation. Grapes remain here for 100 to 120 days, as the air circulates and dries the berries. Grapes with mold are removed immediately. The process is as natural as possible, however, in some cases, large fans and dehumidifiers are used. A few producers continue to dry grapes on traditional bamboo cane racks that were originally used to breed silkworms to produce silk. Over the years this system was dropped as it implies 2 steps. Collect the grapes in crates in the vineyard, and then move the bunches to the arrel in the winery. Appassimento. Appassimento is the process of natural partial dehydration of grapes to produce a greater concentration of colors, aromas, and flavor in the wine. The natural sugars of grapes, fructose and glucose, increase because the water evaporates. Chemical transformations occur in the berries, leading to a concentration of glycerin, smoothness of wine, and polyphenolic substances, aroma. Depending on the vintage, a gray fungus can impact some grapes, noble rot, and gives the wine a rounder body and spicy notes. Production rules. Minimum potential alcohol level at harvest 11%. After harvest, grapes must be air dried to achieve a minimum potential alcohol level of 14%. Cannot be vinified until December 1, some producers wait until January or February. Residual sugar. Maximum 9 grams per liter for a 14% alcohol wine. Sliding scale up to 12 grams low for higher alcohol levels. Aging. Rosso minimum 2 years, Reserva minimum 4 years. Indicate vintage on the label. Aging process takes place in wooden barrels, traditionally in large oak casks, but also tonneau, 500 liters, or barriques, 225 liters, made of either French or Slavonian oak. Bottling must take place in the area of production, except for the holders of a temporary or permanent authorization. Caution. Labor-intensive process producing Amarone presents a significant risk for the development of wine faults. Wet and rainy weather during the harvest can cause the grapes to rot before drying, requiring winemakers to be diligent in removing rotted bunches that can cause mold. Province of Verona. Amarone is produced in the Valpolicella viticultural zone of the province of Verona, Italy, east of Lake Garda. The area was first noted in a 12th century document as Valpolicella. Some research suggests it means valley of many cellars from Greek, poli, and Latin, cella. Others believe it is a reference to the fertility of the soil. Another opinion focuses precisely on the soils of the region that are least suited to the making of great wine. The ultra-fertile soils of the flats and plains are great for orchard trees, but not for the growth of wine grapes, which usually need relatively sterile soils in which to struggle and produce better fruit. The correct soil for grapes is found higher on the hills, where the alluvial soils are rich in limestone and sandstone, noted for heat retention and good drainage. The 4 principal grapes that cover a total of 20,000 acres are Corvina, Corvinone, Rondinella, and Molinara, which grow exclusively in Valpolicella and areas around Verona. To assure this restriction, Valpolicella has a regulatory committee that protects the historic nature of the vineyards, which are considered to be among the best in the region, and located on the valley slopes. Some older vineyards may be small terraced, pergola trained and planted with several varieties, while the younger vineyards are likely to be larger, gaia trained and planted with a single varietal. The region is noted for its microclimates, including many valleys, the proximity of Lake Garda, and vineyard orientations to sun exposure, that has generated areas that favor the early ripening of the grapes, producing wines that are highly perfumed, flavorful, and fresh. Surprise? Not at all. The Veneto region of northeastern Italy produces the wine formerly identified as Amarone della Valpolicella. The nose is rewarded with ripe black and red cherry aromas, along with blackberries, dried figs, raisins, coffee, and chocolate hints. The first sip is an amazing reward, as the wine is dry and not sweet and presence fully developed and memorable. This is a wine that can be aged for an extended time in barrels, and, depending on the wood and the age of the barrels, vanilla and cinnamon may be additional rewards, along with chocolate, cocoa powder, and coffee. Not only is the wine consumer rewarded, the winemakers of Valpolicella, one of the main Italian red wine regions, are also happy. Check their balance sheets, and it will be noted that the wineries are among the best performing in terms of liquidity, lower debt levels, and better debt sustainability. 2020. Valpolicella is the first red wine DOP in Veneto, and among the most important in Italy. Regionally, it is second only to Prosecco with PLV, gross saleable production, per hectare among the highest in Italy, €23,000, 2019. The Consortium for the Protection of Valpolicella Wines represents 272 companies or bottlers and processors of the renowned Veronese PDO, for a supply chain that includes 7 cooperative wineries and 2273 grape-producing farms. Export. Over 62.4% of Amarone DOP, 2019, is exported. Germany -16%. SA, 14%. UK, 12%. Switzerland, 11%. Sweden, 8%. Denmark, 7%. Canada, 6%. China and Japan, 5%. Good drinks. The US market is important for Amarone, especially among consumers with a medium to high income, in comparison to those with medium to low incomes, 15% versus 2%. Men, 13% rather than women, 6%, and those with a high level of education, 16% versus consumers with lower education, 3%, drink more Amarone. Age is also a factor, as drinkers between 23 to 35 YO have a market penetration of 16%, compared to those over 35 YO, 2%. New Yorkers drink the most Amarone in the USA, with most of the consumers living in New York City. The penetration rate of Amarone increases up to 24% among Americans who have been to Italy over the past year, with a 13% increase for people who have relatives of Italian origin, proving the significance of the travel experiences in the production areas and of one's roots. Famigli Storage. Started in 2009, Famigli Storage is the association of 13 historic producers in the Valpolicella region, who are active ambassadors of Amarone. The families provide a constant commitment to quality in promoting the exception Amarone wine. In my opinion, at a recent Amarone wine event in New York City, I discovered 2 Amarones that now have special places in my wine collection. 1. 2016. Cultural, Amarone della Valpolicella Classico DOCG Reserva. Guerrieri Rizzardi. 70% Corvina, 10% Rondinella, 10% Barbera, 7% Sangiovese, 3% Corvinin. In 1649, the Rosardi family started growing grapes in Valpolicella, bottling their first wines in 1678. The estate now includes 100 hectares of vines in Bartolino, Valpolicella, and Sove. The family controls the entire production chain in-house with the same mission, to create estate-produced and bottled wines. Recently, Guerrieri Rosardi joined the Historical Wine Families Association and the Les Hinokians Association, representing 200-year-old family businesses. Calcarl is a single vineyard Amarone Reserva. The vines grow on a steep rocky terraced hillside with south-southwest exposure. The soil is clay sandy with high limestone content. It is produced in small quantities from strictly hand-harvested grapes that are racined in the drying room for 3 months. The grapes are crushed and then follow long slow fermentation of 1 month in stainless steel vats, followed by malolactic fermentation in oak barrels. The wine remains in oak barriques, 225 milliliters, for 12 months and 24 months in 2,500-liter oak barrels. Notes. Black to garnet red to the eye, the nose is rewarded with damp earth, wet rocks, ripe cherries, and strawberries. Chocolate and balsamic herbs share the performance. Soft tannins caress the palate and lead to a powerful, full-bodied, delicious taste experience. 2. 2012. Lilium Est, Amarone della Valpolicella DOCG Reserva 2012. Tenuta Sant Antonio. 70% Corvina and Corvinin, 20% Rondinella, 5% Cretina, 5% Oceletta, 40 YO vines. In the Ulasi Valley of eastern Valpolicella, Antonio Castagnetti left 50 acres of vineyards to his 4 sons, Armando, Tiziano, Paolo, and Massimo. In 1989, the sons purchased another 75 acres of top-quality vineyard land on the high terrain of Monte Garbi, and started to make their own wine, with the first vintage of Tenuta Sant Antonio in 1995. The wine is made from 100% estate-grown fruit, and the brothers devote meticulous attention to their high-density, low-yield vineyards. At harvest time, the grapes for Amarone are harvested on a first pass through the vineyards. The soil is composed of skeletal limestone, with a silty sand fraction. Harvest double hand selection in trays. Pressing only first pressing must without pressing. Racining for 3 months. Natural alcoholic fermentation with hand punching down for about 20 to 25 days in wooden barrels. Malolactic fermentation and natural in 500-liter casks. Batonnage once a week for the first year. Aged for 3 years in new Bordeaux barrels with dried staves in the open for over 36 months. A further period of at least 4 years in a bottle is necessary before being sold. Vinification in new open 500-liter French oak casks. Notes. Look for deep ruby red and black plum hues to the eye. The nose finds prunes, raisins, dried cherries, and spice, cinnamon, cardamom, black pepper, vanilla, and ginger. On the palate, there is generous fruit of black cherries, dried fruit, tobacco, chocolate, and coffee. Well-structured and fully integrated tannins and flavors lead to a long memorable finish. More news about wine. Dr. Eleanor Gerli. This copyright article, including photos, may not be reproduced without written permission from the author.